Hello, I'm Haley, and today we're going to be talking about Attack on Titan Season 1. A non-spoiler summary of what Attack on Titan is. Attack on Titan takes place in a sort of post-apocalypse where, as far as we know, all of humankind, or at least humankind in the area that the story takes place, is relegated to inside a three-wall, like a three-barrier sort of structure to keep these giants, known as Titans, away. And to make a long story short and to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, the story revolves around the main cast navigating this world that is infested with Titans and trying to combat that threat and maybe come to a solution for the problem. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and start getting into spoilers and actually giving my thoughts. Long story short, without giving any spoilers, this might be one of the best anime I've ever watched, just based off of this one season. But if you don't want any spoilers, I'm going to go ahead and give my usual 3-second countdown. 1, 2, 3. Alright, for those that have stuck around, what a great anime, huh? Now, I have been told by lots of people who've already seen it in my personal life that seasons 2 and 3 are going to be a bit of a snooze. I don't know, right now I'm looking forward to it, but I guess we'll see. I did see, because of Crunchyroll, that the first episode of the next season is Beast Titan. So, interesting. I know for certain, just based off of the internet, that the Beast Titan is definitely not a friend. It is definitely an enemy. So I did not know that he was coming as soon as he was. But I also didn't know that Eren was going to transform as soon as he was. Because if you had been keeping up with my my daily, well, pseudo-daily, if you had been keeping up with my episode-by-episode reaction-esque sort of notes, yeah, I didn't know that Eren was going to be transforming into a Titan as soon as he did. But I did know that it was going to happen. Some things that I went into this anime knowing ahead of time. And if you haven't seen all of Attack on Titan, I might put a timestamp up or something, but essentially I'm going to talk about some spoilers that go beyond Season 1 for a second here. So, if you would, just give me a moment. I've heard about the rumbling. I don't 100% know what it is. I think he, basically Thanos is everyone, just wipes out half of humanity or something. So I know Eren doesn't die at any point, or at least not permanently. Somebody in the comments of one of the videos did spoil that Levi's squad and Levi are going to die. However, it is possible that he was just trolling and that Levi is not going to die at any point. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Levi does die, just because this show is very good at making you feel like nobody is safe. And the only reason that I feel Eren is safe is because I know for a fact that he makes it to the final season and in some way, shape, or form kind of brings the story to its climax. I also know of I knew ahead of time of the existence of the Colossal Titan. I knew of the Armored Titan, but I thought he and the Colossal Titan were the same, because I didn't really look into it that deep. Obviously, you guys know, I'm a Dead by Daylight player, so I know about the Warhammer Titan and the Armored Titan, who I thought was the Colossal Titan. I thought they were the same thing because of the Oni and Spirit skins. And I knew about the Beast Titan, but I don't know, anything about him. The female Titan, who we now know is Annie, which I called it, on episode 17, when the female Titan popped up, I did suspect it was her. I'm not gonna say I knew it. I did say it in my videos, but full honesty, transparency, whatever you want to call it. It's not like I knew for certain it was her, but I suspected it was her. So that's basically the same as calling it. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that W, please. But no, seriously. That was a surprise for me. I didn't know that was a thing that was going to happen, and it was quite fun to watch, that whole sequence of events. That said, My favorite part of the story this season, like my favorite part of the season, I did quite like Aaron versus Annie in the woods. And my favorite character for the beginning section of the story was definitely Sasha. I think her name's Sasha. The one that's very food motivated. But it seems like she just totally loses that character trait as soon as she gets put out into the scouts, I guess. And so I'm not gonna say, like, in all honesty, she's not like my favorite character anymore, but it's not like she loses character points, I guess. It's just more that, like, she's not all that, like, fleshed out in any way. So I would say probably my favorite character, like, if I'm actually being honest and, like, measuring the quality of the character and their writing, I can't believe I'm gonna say this because I didn't like him at the beginning, but I'm gonna have to go with John, I think. Maybe Levi, but he's kind of got that too cool for school attitude that I'm not the biggest fan of. But Jean definitely, I feel like, was probably one of the better written characters of this season, because he starts off kind of like, you know, just this, like one of those guys that, like, only joins the military for the money and the clout. Like, you know, the people that join the military for the free food, if that makes sense. And I'm not saying, like, you know, everybody who joins the military and doing it for, you know, free food and veteran benefits and stuff. Like, all I'm saying is, like, he is portrayed to be that type. He's trying to get, like, the cushiest, easiest job in the, what do they call it? In the, I guess I'm just gonna say in the army. I don't know what, I forget what they call, like, the overall, like, Titan attacking force thing. He's trying to get into the MPs, whereas most any character worth their salt in this show is trying to be a scout. So, but it was pretty cool to kind of watch, like, as soon as, like, shit hits the fan, basically, you kind of see, like, who he really is, and you would think he's a sniveling coward and a loser, but really, like, he sees what's going on, and, you know, he's genuinely scared, and he just doesn't want to see any more people, like, get hurt, and he doesn't want to die himself, but he also wants to do the right thing, which is crazy coming from a character who literally went into this just, you know, completely thinking of himself. And there's nothing wrong with that, you know, not inherently so, especially in this kind of situation, but he still went down the, what we'll call the theoretically more moral path. And for that, he is my favorite character. Aaron, I found to be kind of, I didn't really like Aaron for most of this season, especially in the beginning. Like, I didn't like John, but also, to be fair, a lot of the time, John was speaking facts anytime he was talking with Aaron, because, I mean, it's one thing to, like, it's one thing to want to do the right thing and, like, do the moral thing and be a good person and all that, right? And want to help people and want to put an end to everything. But it's another thing to expect people to want to die for the cause, you know? Not everybody has a death wish, right? Aaron definitely has a death wish. He wants to take out as many Titans as he can until he dies. I don't even know if he, in his mind, saw, like, an end to it. You know, I will say he did kind of start to lighten up a little bit towards the tail end of the season. I would say once he, like, joins the Levi squad, he kind of chills out a little bit, because he's just getting humbled so much. He does get humbled quite a bit in, like, cadets, but I feel like he really starts to hit his humbling points with the Levi squad, because, you know, everybody on that team is just much harder than you, man. So, you know, why don't you shut up and learn something? And I think that's what he did, or at least was starting to do. I mean, case in point, while they were in the woods, you know, he was gonna act on his own impulses, and instead You know, he put faith in the Levi squad. He sat, he really did have to think about it, which, in my opinion, only really highlights the growth on his part. Now, unfortunately, it may have been the wrong decision, but the funny thing about hindsight is it's 2020. Given the information he had, he thought that was the correct course of action. And on top of that, there's no telling that he would have been able to do it either. Because, like, when it came down to him versus Annie, which we didn't know was Annie at the time, but when it came down to him versus Annie, he didn't win. He put up a good fight, sure, but he didn't win. And, you might think, oh, well, if they had all teamed up on her, they could have done it. But there were a lot of unknowns, things they did not know about her. They didn't know that she could harden her skin or how skilled she was at combat. They didn't know at the time that she could summon other, titans. So, we don't know for sure that they would have won that fight. It could have turned out exactly the same. The beginning, the first episode, this was another thing that I had spoiled for me before I started watching this, was I knew that his mom gets eaten. I didn't remember, I thought Mikasa was, his sister or something. Well, actually, first of all, I totally forgot about her. But then when I was like, oh, that's Mikasa, I remember people talking about her. She's, big on the internet, I think. I didn't know that, they lived together as kids. And when they were introduced, now that I was actually, sitting here watching it, I was like, oh, they're siblings. But then her last name is Ackerman, and Levi's last name is Ackerman, and why has that not been acknowledged? All season, that didn't go acknowledged, to the point that I am sitting here questioning myself right now. And I may very well, while I'm editing this, go back and double check if I'm crazy. Because I swear they said Mikasa Ackerman. And I know Levi's last name, or family name, or however you want to look at it, because I know it's in Japan, is Ackerman. So, we will talk about that, or what? What's up with that? Talking about the kind of overarching themes of this narrative, it's a lot of trying to find hope in hopeless times, and sometimes you just have to keep pushing forward even though it seems like there is no hope, because the only way to move forward is to get up and keep walking. I think that's the overarching narrative, at least for this season. I understand that things clearly take a much more unfortunate turn towards the end, but I'm trying not to let that affect my viewpoint of this season specifically. I also am picking up on hints of political squabble or something of that effect going on. I'm not sure. It's definitely not the primary focus, but it's definitely a background thing that is affecting the overarching narrative in a subtle way, where it seems like the writers don't want you to really focus on it, but they want it to be something that you can pick up on and kind of have in the back of your mind. Or at least that's my perception of what's going on. I will say a big gripe that I have, and it's not the biggest problem ever or anything, but there are so many characters, so many names that I was trying to remember, to the point I almost considered making myself flashcards or something just to help me remember what people's names were. Thankfully, it's easier to remember faces and be like, that's that character. I don't know your name, but you're that character. But for the purposes of making these videos for you guys, I imagine it probably wasn't the greatest for you guys. So I may consider doing a little bit of just brushing up on characters. I just didn't want to get anything spoiled for me in attempting to remember people's names. So yeah. I'll figure something out so that hopefully this will be easier for you guys to know who I'm talking about moving forward, in case that's an issue that maybe you're having. I did, since this is a shonen anime, I'll talk about the combat slash battling slash whatever you want to call it a little bit. They're definitely not the most complex technical fights that I've ever seen by any stretch, but there's some cool things, like they're very spectacle, but also not even the most spectacle fights I've ever seen, but they're very spectacle, especially probably for the time, because it's very David and Goliath, and that very well may have been inspiration in part for this series. And I thought the ODM gear was very cool. Like, the way they just kind of swing around like Spider-Man or, I don't know, Batman or something. Like, just the way they be swinging around and like, the sword play. The choreography is just really good when it comes to, like, the humans navigating around and fighting these titans. This show is it's not incredibly gory, I don't feel. There is some gore to be warned of, but it's definitely not the goriest thing I've ever seen. At least I don't think it is. And but it is very depressing at times. But also, like, the further you go into it, at least for me this season, the more I was going into it, the more I wanted to keep going, which to me is the sign of good writing. Like, I wanted to know, like I still want to know, what's the deal with the basement? What's up with that key? What's the secret being held down there? I still want to know that. And, how do the Titans work? Are all of the Titans just humans with, like, inflatable flesh shells like Eren? Or are the Titans like a species, but for some reason, like, there are humans that are capable of forming Titan-esque bodies around them? And, just more of that. Like, I want to know more. I want to know information, And then the Titans that we know for certain have got to have human pilots, conscious human pilots, no less. Like, for example, they made it pretty clear, I feel, that at least the Colossal Titan and the Armored Titan are suspected to be conscious human beings piloting Titan suits, I guess. Man, I just realized this means Attack on Titan is really just, like, the Titans could all very well just be fleshy mechs, in a way. But anyway, that's a story for another day, I guess. The Titans themselves, like, they're very... It's almost like a horror anime in a way, because, like, especially for a lot of the anime, like, the characters are hiding scared in places, and people are being eaten, popped like grapes, thrown, like, just necks snapped in between teeth, like, just really, like, uncomfortable imagery. Intentionally so, like, disturbing and uncomfortable. They're meant to be. Those creepy, uncanny smiles, the way some of them just run real funky, real stompy, hands to the side, kind of similar to, like, the way toddlers were, like, still just barely able to, like, barely learned how to walk last week or something. Kind of like that. It's real freaky to look at on, like, what is intended to look like an adult human body, Like, I like that there's, like, different symbolism for, like, different sections of the military. And I'm noticing patterns of threes. So, like, there's 3 walls, there's 3 branches of the military, there's, we start off with our main cast of 3 characters, which is just classic for anime, the 3 characters part of it. But, and I do find, like, this implied relationship or implied, like, romance between Mikasa and Eren to be kind of weird and uncomfortable because in my head, they're like basically siblings or like close cousins. Like they're family in my head. So like the thought of them being in a romantic relationship is just kind of weird because, you know, it's like that's like family. So I'm not the biggest fan of that. And I'm hoping that it doesn't go in that direction. Because I don't know if there's really a way to make it not feel that way for me personally. Armin did take some time to grow on me. I think we had to get past the part where he's just always sniveling and scared. When he starts really showing his usefulness as a strategist. And now I kind of find him invaluable. And if we lose Armin, we lose some really valuable skills that it seems most of the team is lacking, at least comparatively speaking. Not to say that the team is dumb. Like, Jean comes up with okay plans, and, you know, Eren's a fucking rockhead, and Mikasa's just busted, so she don't necessarily need a plan. She's just good like that. I feel like Levi is kind of a nice balance. He's not as cunning per se as Armin, but he's got skill like Mikasa does. And I would say that he has got some grit like Eren. Annie, I'm curious to see more from, and I did kind of talk about this a little bit in my videos, but like, I'm glad that they spared her at the end of the season, because I'm hoping that maybe she'll come around. And, you know, like, if it were the real world, she killed a lot of people, so, like, we really don't want to see her be redeemed. But given that this story is about how cruel the world is and kind of, like, I shouldn't say this is what it's about, but I want to see these characters overcome the cruelty, rise above it, and create a better, more moral, less cruel world. You know, by, you know, finding like a way to be moral and still solve the problem. Because, you know, I guess that's just my escapism right there. That's just, I like to see good succeed, because in this real world that we live in, good does not always succeed. At least not right away. I will say, as far as Commander Irvin goes, I do think he's definitely a very respectable character, and probably intentionally so. Like, he's probably written with the intention for you know, viewers to really respect and admire him, because, you know, he is the commander, and he's painted to be, you know, very cunning, not very forthcoming, but a very honest guy. Which, speaking of commanders and honesty and trust, because I would say, like, I trust Irvin, right? But that other guy, whose name I currently... Oh, Pixis or something like that. I don't trust him. I think he's full of it. I think he's just a master manipulator. I think he's got us by the heartstrings, and I think he is going to do something awful at some point. I don't know what, and maybe I will eat my words in these 4 seasons. But right now, don't trust him. Way too good a guy with no, like, concession anywhere around the board that I can think of. The closest being he did sacrifice some lives to patch up the wall. Which, what a strange patch job. You're telling me we just put a boulder in front of the hole and the Titans aren't going to be able to move it? What do you mean? These Titans are strong as all get out. And what about the armored Titan? He's just going to come through and crash right on through the wall anyway. He's definitely going to be able to crash through this rock. He could probably just push it. Heck, the Colossal Titan could probably just walk up and just kick it like a freaking golf ball in the dirt. So yeah, I thought that plan was stupid, and I'm surprised that this wall is holding up as well as it is. On a much, much smaller, less relevant note, I did think the, like, religious group that worships the walls like gods. I did think that was a cool little addition, and I'm hoping maybe we'll get more of that, but we might not, because they did kind of, like, a good chunk of them did just straight up get stomped on. Also, Titan within the central area where, like, nobody had ever seen a Titan before, that was crazy to watch, because I'm hoping that it really does light a fire in some of the characters that might have the opportunity to be more morally good. But we're about to see a lot of corruption. I can feel it in my bones. We're about to see some real absolute scumbags, and there's already been quite a few in this story, so who knows what we're about to get into here. I don't even know. Before I go, let's talk about some things that maybe I'm looking forward to, and I have already talked about a few of them, but yeah, obviously I want to see more from Annie. I'm hoping to see kind of maybe it doesn't have to be a redemption arc, she doesn't need to be redeemed, but maybe a progression of character, maybe some moral realignment of some kind, you know? Like, you can become a better person and still not be redeemed, you know? Like, do something good, and it doesn't have to compensate or atone for the actions that you've already committed. And also, I think it'd be cool to learn more about the Titans through her. I am excited to see more Titans and more Titan interaction. I'm deathly afraid of watching more characters die, but I know it's going to happen. So it's just a matter of who, when, and how well it's written. Because certain characters I'm okay with shock deaths, but there are some characters that need to have a death that is well written. And I will use as an example, okay? So we're going to go way back. We're going to go to the Netflix show Wednesday, season 1. Alright? I'm going to give you guys who haven't seen it and are interested in checking it out, I'm going to give you a spoiler warning, okay? So here's your spoiler warning with your 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Alright. So for those who have seen Wednesday season 1, when Larissa Weems, Principal Weems, she was a very important character all season, and her death was so unceremonious. It just completely... That death pissed me off. And not because, oh no, a character that I really like died. No. It was just the bullshit nature of it. Like, we didn't get no character development from it. We didn't get no revelations. We didn't, there was no emotional weight to it. It just happened so unceremoniously, and I didn't like it. And maybe you guys did. Maybe it's not as bad as I think it is in my head, but I didn't freaking like it. And so if I get a death scene like that from Attack on Titan, from like a major character, like even Sasha, okay? Like, if it happens to Sasha, I love Sasha, but she's not all that major a character. But now let's say Levi gets an unceremonious death, or Irvin might be like the middle ground, or I'm not sure. Like, he could get away with like a well-written emotional death, or he could get away with a shock death. But like, anybody more relevant than Irvin, so for example, Sean, Armin, Mikasa, if any of those characters were to just straight up die, like with no weight given to it, it just happens spontaneously or in the moment, like, oh, okay, they died, moving on, anyway. No. I'm not saying I'll drop the show, but it will permanently leave an effect on my opinion of the show from that point forward. That's what I'll say. I am kind of interested to see some of like the political squabble that is to come, but it's definitely not like the highlight of the show. It's not what I'm watching it for. I guess at the end of the day, what I'm watching this for, what I enjoy about it, are the emotional beats, the overarching theme that I had just discussed a few minutes ago of, you know, finding hope in the hopelessness, picking yourself up and keep going forward, even though it feels like there's no good reason to. It would just be easier to give up and be done with it because, you know, everything is hopeless and helpless and dreary and miserable. And I guess there's, even for me as a reader, or I mean as a watcher, there is this hope in me that, you know, maybe Aaron isn't going to rise above, like, you know, the cruelty of this world, but maybe an Armin or a Mikasa or a Levi or a, you know, someone, and even an Annie, like somebody. I want to see somebody rise above and do good for the sake of doing good, I guess, and a distinct lack of cruelty, I guess I would say. But I think that's really all the thoughts I have for this season. I'm really excited for season 2. I hope you guys can be there on the journey with me. But that's all I have today. But that's all I have to say. So you guys have a great night. Bye-bye.